Proverbs 19:1 through 20:30. Devotional focus verse. Even a child is known by his doings, whether his work be pure and whether it be right. Proverbs 20:11. Soon after I became a Christian, my 5-year-old son told me he wanted to ask Jesus into his heart as I had done. Assuming he was too young to really understand what that meant, I did not think God would answer his prayer. However, I did not want him worrying that he wouldn't go to heaven, so I decided to humor him and we prayed together. Several months later, my mother and sister were visiting and remarked that my son's behavior had changed. They said that in the past, he had only wanted to play by fighting with them, but now he was calm. I had noticed a change also. He had quit biting his sister, he was cooperating with me in the mornings, and he no longer gave up in frustration when something was difficult. My sister asked what had happened to bring about this change in his behavior, and I thought back, trying to remember when I had first noticed it. Then I realized that it was when we had prayed together, and I knew that Jesus had come into his heart. A few years later, I noticed that my son was beginning to be drawn towards the things of the world. After reading a book about cowboys, he announced that he wanted to learn to play poker. When I told him no, he started carrying a deck of cards in his pocket. He did not disobey me and play with them, but I could see that he wanted to. One day, he brought home a cassette of music that I had banned and asked if he could listen to it. When I said no, he added the cassette to his pocket. After a few more things went into his pocket, I told him that if he would pray, God would take away his longing for the things of the world and he would be happier. A short time later, I observed a change in his behavior again. He no longer seemed to be drawn toward activities that were questionable or that would not be good for him spiritually. I checked his pockets and found that they were empty. I realized that there had been a real change. God had sanctified him. Our focus verse says that even a child is known by his doings. Just as my son's behavior reflected what was in his heart, our actions as adults reveal what is in our hearts. If we have received the life-changing experiences of salvation and sanctification, and we continue to seek God and be obedient to his word, our lives will be a reflection of Jesus in our hearts and a testimony to those around us. Background information. The text today continues the Proverbs with Solomon's spiritual wisdom. This portion was written in the parallel style. The initial thought is amplified or repeated by the latter part of the verse. Most of the Proverbs from 16:1 to 22:16 have this construction. Proverbs 19 offers instruction related to character and has two primary themes. Learning to handle wealth and to heed instruction were essential requirements for Israel's youth, and the wise teachers of Israel did not overlook these topics. The couplets in verses 1 through 17 deal for the most part with poverty and wealth. For example, in verses 6 and 7, Solomon taught that wealth brings favor and friendships, but poverty often causes relatives and fair-weather friends to forget a person. Verses 18 through 29 focus on the importance of listening. The phrase, "that thou mayest be wise in thy latter end," in verse 20 could be translated, "that you may be wise the rest of your days," indicating the high value that Solomon placed on instruction. In many of these verses, it is made clear that those who trust God are spared a great deal of harm. See verse 23. Although the fear of the Lord is not a guarantee of freedom from harm or loss, it does ensure that faithful followers of God will be under God's protection forever. Proverbs 20 addresses means and ends related to the preservation of stability in the community, and like the preceding chapter, can be divided into two sections. The first section, verses 1 through 14, relates primarily to the character of the righteous, making it clear that the godly man will avoid strong drink and strife, will be industrious and faithful, and will walk in integrity. The second section, verses 15 through 30, includes the recurring themes of wisdom and lasting wealth. The sage's observations related to these themes bring out the peril of laziness, verse 13, the fact that knowledge is more valuable than wealth, verse 15, that obtaining one's inheritance by unjust means will cause the forfeiture of God's blessings, verse 21, and the abomination of cheating, verse 23. Conclusion. The conduct of a child is not only a revealer of his character, but also what kind of relationship he has with God. The same is true of us.
Proverbs chapter 19. Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity, than he that is perverse in his lips, and is a fool. Also, that the soul be without knowledge, it is not good, and he that hasteth with his feet sinneth. The foolishness of man perverteth his way, and his heart fretteth against the Lord. Wealth maketh many friends, but the poor is separated from his neighbor. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. Many will entreat the favor of the prince, and every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. All the brethren of the poor do hate him, how much more do his friends go far from him? He pursueth them with words, yet they are wanting to him. He that getteth wisdom loveth his own soul, he that keepeth understanding shall find good. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish. Delight is not seemly for a fool, much less for a servant to have rule over princes. The discretion of a man deferreth his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression. The king's wrath is as the roaring of a lion, but his favor is as dew upon the grass. A foolish son is the calamity of his father, and the contentions of a wife are a continual dropping. House and riches are the inheritance of fathers, and a prudent wife is from the Lord. Slothfulness casteth into a deep sleep, and an idle soul shall suffer hunger. He that keepeth the commandment keepeth his own soul, but he that despiseth his way shall die. He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Lord, and that which he hath given will he pay him again. Chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not thy soul spare for his crying. A man of great wrath shall suffer punishment, for if thou deliver him, yet thou must do it again. Hear counsel, and receive instruction, that thou mayest be wise in thy latter end. There are many devices in a man's heart, nevertheless the counsel of the Lord, that shall stand. The desire of a man is his kindness, and a poor man is better than a liar. The fear of the Lord tendeth to life, and he that hath it shall abide satisfied, he shall not be visited with evil. A slothful man hideth his hand in his bosom, and will not so much as bring it to his mouth again. Smite a scorner, and the simple will beware, and reprove one that hath understanding, and he will understand knowledge. He that wasteth his father, and chaseth away his mother, is a son that causeth shame, and bringeth reproach. Cease, my son, to hear the instruction that causeth to err from the words of knowledge. An ungodly witness scorneth judgment, and the mouth of the wicked devoureth iniquity. Judgments are prepared for scorners, and stripes for the back of fools. Proverbs chapter 20. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. The fear of a king is as the roaring of a lion, whoso provoketh him to anger sinneth against his own soul. It is an honor for a man to cease from strife, but every fool will be meddling. The sluggard will not plow by reason of the cold, therefore shall he beg in harvest, and have nothing. Counsel in the heart of man is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. Most men will proclaim every one his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find? The just man walketh in his integrity, his children are blessed after him. A king that sitteth in the throne of judgment scattereth away all evil with his eyes. Who can say, I have made my heart clean, I am pure from my sin. Divers weights, and divers measures, both of them are like abomination to the Lord. Even a child is known by his doings, whether his work be pure, and whether it be right. The hearing ear, and the seeing eye, the Lord hath made even both of them. Love not sleep, lest thou come to poverty, open thine eyes, and thou shalt be satisfied with bread. It is not, saith the buyer, but when he is gone his way, then he boasteth. There is gold, and a multitude of rubies, but the lips of knowledge are a precious jewel. Take his garment that is surety for a stranger, and take a pledge of him for a strange woman. Bread of deceit is sweet to a man, but afterwards his mouth shall be filled with gravel. Every purpose is established by counsel, and with good advice make war. He that goeth about as a talebearer revealeth secrets, therefore meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips. Whoso curseth his father or his mother, his lamp shall be put out in obscure darkness. An inheritance may be gotten hastily at the beginning, but the end thereof shall not be blessed. Say not thou, I will recompense evil, but wait on the Lord, and he shall save thee. Divers weights are an abomination unto the Lord, and a false balance is not good. Man's goings are of the Lord, how can a man then understand his own way? It is a snare to the man who devoureth that which is holy, and after vows to make inquiry. A wise king scattereth the wicked, and bringeth the wheel over them. The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of the belly. Mercy and truth preserve the king, and his throne is upholden by mercy. The glory of young men is their strength, and the beauty of old men is the grey head. The blueness of a wound cleanseth away evil, so do stripes the inward parts of the belly.